successful for the party, would you say, or not?
Well, if you listen to all the media reporting, it hasn't been successful. But in a sense, I would have scrapped the conference, frankly, if I'd been Liz Truss. I wouldn't have had the
Labour
conference.
and Tory, they both should have been scrapped.
They should both have been scrapped. Everyone through August was saying what a protracted leadership contest that was, how the country needed to be governed. Then we had, of course, the Queen's funeral. That took a week out of government time. And then we adjourned for, another 2 weeks to do this. And I would have cancelled all of it. And in a sense, what Liz really needs to do now is block the noise out of her ears. I agree with Tom to some extent in that this is an important speech, but it's not pivotal to Liz Truss. People like Michael Gove have calculated that the Conservatives are going to lose the next election. People like Michael Gove recognise that their time in frontline politics is over. So they're going to be difficult. What she needs to do is call their bluff, blank out the noise, ignore people like Gove, who have turned into bitter, twisted old politicians, and just do what she said she would, which is deliver, deliver, deliver. And if you look at the mini-budget, it was the beginnings of that. Everyone hijacked the debate over the mini-budget because of the cut in the higher rate of tax. But actually, every other measure she announced that day was good for business, good for the working class, good for the middle class. And that's how you get growth. So she needs to blank out this noise. She needs to be robust. She needs to be resolved. She needs to lead the country. And she needs to deliver the agenda on which she was appointed Prime Minister.
The irony is, Ben, of course, that she said they wanted to renege on that promise to reduce the top rate of tax because it was a distraction.
Yeah.
The irony, of course, is then going back on it became an even bigger distraction.
And that's the danger with you turning as a Prime Minister. Let's just put that 45% tax cut into perspective. It amounted to £2 billion a year out of a total package of tax cuts and waivers of tax increases that Rishi Sunak wanted to bring in of about 45 billion. It was a rounding error. It was a drop in the ocean compared to the cap on energy prices, which was potentially up to 150 billion pounds. But everyone focused in on it. People like Gove knew they could make political capital out of it, and they attacked the Prime Minister on it.
What should she do with people like Gove? What can you do in politics? You were an MEP. You're working now, I think, with the Reform Party a little bit, are you?
Well,
peripherally.
Richard's a good friend. And,
yes, Richard Tice, who leads that up. He has ambitions to be disruptive. But what does a Prime Minister do with politicians like Michael Gove, who are just needling away in the background and being a pest?
She has to stare him down. She's not going to win Michael Gove over. She's not going to win all those parliamentarians who are now her detractors because they wanted Rishi Sunak to win. Those parliamentarians who believe in Treasury orthodoxy, who believe in what they define as compassionate conservatism, for which you can read large borrowing, large state, absence of growth. And she's recognised that that doesn't work, and she just needs to call their bluff. The question now for the parliamentary party is, do they want to rally around Liz Truss, or do they want to be obliterated at the next election? It's a Mexican standoff between her and the disruptors, and she just needs to hold firm.
Of course, the majority of her MPs voted for Sunak to become Prime Minister. It went to the Conservative Party members. The majority of those voted for her. But that does leave her in a very vulnerable position, doesn't it?
It does in the parliamentary party. And we're almost back to 2019. Do you remember when we had the sort of People versus Parliament? And again, we've got people like Gove and Simon Hoare and others who they're not proposing and championing the agenda of the people. The people want growth. The people, I'm sure, see through all the noise in the political arena at the moment and recognise that energy bills have been capped, recognise that the basic rate of tax was cut, that it's good for business to wind back those reforms on IR35. Do you remember? Those really difficult reforms that Boris Johnson brought in that captured so many more people in the tax net.
That's right,
she wound those back. It got no airtime. But people understand it. The electorate understand what's going on because they feel it in their pockets. So what she needs to do is just hold her nerve for 6 months, let her policies bed in, let the benefits of her policies manifest themselves in the economy, and things will automatically come right for her.
She is a human being. At the end of the day, it's easy to forget when you have a Prime Minister that they are experiencing normal human emotions. And I think as a performer on the stage, which is what she has to be in less than an hour's time, she always looks like she performs better when she's feeling confident. So in the hustings, when it was clear that the party members were on board, she rose to the challenge of that. I worry that she's going to go on that stage in less than an hour, being a little bit shaken by everything that's happened this week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And in a sense, Tom's right, isn't he? It's going to be a test of her, at least her visible resolve. And if she can get up there and she can be upbeat and she can be optimistic and she can...
style it out, as the kids might say. Style it out, Ben, confidently.
But, she should be able to be confident because her agenda is a good one.
Yeah.
People want growth. People want an aspirational future for their children. We don't want more state interference. We want to keep more of what we earn. We want to make the decisions with our money. If you go back to, I know you're a big... believer in lockdown not having been the right policy. But if you go back to lockdown, it was the most interventionist state policy in all of history. Literally, the country was shut down and the government printed money. So for people like Gove now to talk about fiscal prudence, when that policy cost the Exchequer £500 billion, and he's fussing over a £2 billion tax cut, it's just disingenuous in the extreme.
Yeah. You know what this conference has allowed us to do, and I agree with you that maybe the logic of keeping it on is not there, but what it has allowed us to do is to have a good look at some of the team that she has brought on board and see them on stage and see what they have to offer. They've set out their stall. We're going to talk about Suella Braverman in a little while, but who else has impressed you this week?
Well, Suella stands head and shoulders, I think, above many politicians because, she's obviously very bright, well-educated, knows her brief, is articulate. And the other thing that I really like about Suella, if I'm not jumping your agenda...
Yeah, no, it's fine.
The other thing I really like about Suella, when Suella's asked a question, you can see her brain in action. You can almost see she's thinking it through. And she's not thinking it through in order to give the answer she thinks the interviewer wants to hear. She's thinking it through to make sure that she has absolutely got it right, that she's telling the truth, the whole truth, and she doesn't pull any punches. So a lot of people didn't like her speech yesterday, but it was absolutely from the heart, and she said it as it was.